Agencies are really important because they exercise authority that is delegated to them by Congress. This happens a lot. That's a whole different debate if you want to talk about how much that should happen, why it happens, under what circumstances. But the fact of the matter is that agencies do have authority to create regulations that have the force and effect of a law passed by Congress. They exercise this authority pursuant to the Administrative Procedures Act, or the APA. And practically, they do this through what's called the notice and comment process. So they can't just create a rule and say, this is what we're sticking to. There has to be this process by which they propose something, and the general public has the opportunity to comment on the rule, how it would impact them, what they like, what they would change. And so it's a very public process. It's a matter, and you can get to it through federal.gov and regulations.gov are the two important places in which these proposed rules are published. So the general process is that an agency will issue a proposed rule called an NPRM, or a Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. The public then has a set period of time to comment on that proposed rule, and this can be as formal or informal as you would want it to be. Individual citizens comment, organizations comment. You see a whole broad range in feedback that will come to an NPRM. An agency then has to review and respond to all of those comments and consider revisions, and then they issue the final rule. So it's probably an oversimplified summary, but that's the general process of how an agency creates a rule. Once they're finalized, they're published in the Federal Register, and they do have the force and effect of law. If this is something you're interested in following, you can sign up for daily digests and summaries from the Federal Register for what's published by agency or by search term. I get a grouping of emails early every single morning that tells me what has been published in the Federal Register for that day. A lot to process if you're looking at everything. So you're going to know what you're looking for when you're tracking rules and regulations. Another tool that is really important in the context of agencies and the work that they do impacting our organizations are called guidance documents. And so these documents, they're not a rule. They don't go through the rulemaking process, but they do stake out statements of an agency's position on a specific regulatory process. They're often in more lay terms than maybe a regulation might be. They're plain language explanations of an agency's interpretation of a regulation. They're not supposed to have the force and effect of law. That's varied over time, but they are not intended to be something, nor are they supposed to be something that can have the force and effect of law in the way that a regulation does.
Yeah, that's actually a place where I was going to interject here with a little bit of a follow-up question as I was tracking with you, Amy. You talked about both the agency rules and also agency guidance. So maybe tell us, those who aren't in this every day, a little bit more about the difference between those two. And I imagine there's got to be some instances where the lines would get a little bit blurry. So maybe you could help unpack that for us.
They do, and it's an important distinction. And so you don't want the lines to be blurred between the two. Because agencies are exercising delegated authority from Congress, it's important that there is the opportunity for public feedback on what they're proposing that will have the force and effect of law. But at various times over the years, agencies have issued guidance as a way to encourage a policy outcome that maybe they would like, but they have not gotten through the NPRM process. And so it's important when you're looking at documents from an agency to recognize what is binding as a matter of law and what is not. And so guidance documents really purely are supposed to be policy statements or helpful applications, or a lot of agencies will issue opinion letters on how they would apply the rules and laws in their jurisdiction to a specific set of circumstances. But those tools are not meant to expand into the area of regulations and basically making as a backdoor to rules where rules have not actually been finalized. And this was something that the past DOJ, the Trump DOJ, did actually take issue with and issued a memo called the Brand Memo. It was issued by Rachel Brand to say that guidance documents are guidance documents, and you need to make clear on those documents that they do not have the force and effect of law.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more finance, governance, and fundraising news and insights for your church or ministry.